I work with a lot of companies, and one mistake I'm constantly seeing is them leaving sales execution and strategy in the hands of reps. What they should be doing is building centralized go-to-market playbooks. In this video, I'm going to show you a proven approach on how we've built playbooks here at ZoomInfo and how you can build your own. Let's get into it. A go-to-market playbook is a structured way to launch outbound for your sales reps. A really great sales rep might see on LinkedIn that one of their past champions went to a different company. That's a really great sign for them to tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, congratulations on the new gig. Would you want to work together again? They might understand that if they work with a company that has a set of technologies that integrate with your technology that you're offering, that they can actually pivot their content and their messaging to that and say, hey, my technology integrates with your existing tech stack. Would you want to work together? They're doing all of this data lookup and connecting the dots and computing attributes together, connecting it to messaging, understanding that, hey, this person reports to this other person, and putting that together to design how they're running their own outbound. What we actually see with centralized go-to-market playbooks is we actually take that work and start to scale it by identifying the data ourselves from that centralized lane. We start to build the content around it and building content pivots that align exactly to the data that is relevant to us. You might have messaging that looks a little bit differently if you're targeting somebody a little bit more senior, a vice president or a C-level executive, versus when you're targeting a manager and or a director. So now that we understand why building a go-to-market playbook is so important, let's talk a little bit about how to approach that. The first one is understanding what plays are your teams already running. So you just start by talking to the field. How are they targeting accounts? What is their current approach? Where are they pulling messaging from? Understand what plays your teams are already running and then start to build on from there. When you go and talk to your sellers, here's a couple of questions that you can ask them. Who are you targeting? Typically, companies provide sellers with a list of personas to target. Is that the list of personas that you're targeting? Are you finding them within CRM? Are you finding them with ZoomInfo? What other research are you doing? How much time are you spending on this type of research? What signals are you finding the most success with? Are you editing messaging as you go along, or are you getting messaging directly from marketing that's sort of out of the box and you send it out? Once you have that understanding of what's already been done by the field, then you can take it and make it scalable across the rest of the org. So now that we understand what has worked for our sellers, we can start to look at what plays are going to be the most scalable based on signal density. So we take all of our target accounts and we run a signals analysis. We're essentially looking for any signals that we can build a trigger and an outcome aligned to it. So we can look for intent signals. What companies are currently researching intent topics that are relevant to your product and or service? We can look at all of the personas that are relevant across each one of these companies. We look at earnings data to understand, was there anything that was said in an earnings call that might be relevant to our targeting? We can look at news data to see did anything happen at any of these companies that we can connect to a play. A lot of companies have projects that ZoomInfo has data on that we've identified that we can actually connect to the content of how we're targeting that specific company. Another great signal to look for is website visits. If a company has been on your website multiple times, you should have a process for that you're building out how to target each one of those companies, a workflow that pulls the buying committee for each one of those companies, and messaging that aligns to those websites. Okay, so now we've run the signals analysis and we understand the signals yield. Now it's time to start putting that together in a go-to-market playbook. We want to start by mapping out all of the plays that your teams are already running ad hoc, and then any other plays that you might want to run based on that signals analysis. If the signals analysis indicated to you that there's a specific intent topic that is really high, you might want to build an intent-based play on that, include that in your go-to-market playbook. If a company is signaling on intent for something that you offer, you should have a programmatic approach to target that company. You should have off-the-shelf messaging for your sales reps to pull and the exact titles that they should target for that specific intent topic. First, we start by setting up the infrastructure within your tools. Second, we want to enable the field on what to do. And third, we want to launch our plays. So how do we do that? We start by setting up the infrastructure within our tools. Within your sales automation tool, you want to set up your messaging. All of the messaging that aligns to each one of the plays that you're going to launch. For your CRM, you want to make sure that you have your reporting set up, that you understand how the data is going to flow in order to launch those plays. Then we move over to enablement. Some plays are going to be off the shelf. So you want a process that you're going to teach your sales reps. Every time this signal happens, we are going to alert you. This is the messaging you're going to use, and here are the people that you're going to target. Some plays are going to be automated. So all you need is to understand what the process is and making sure that all of those steps are set up to go in order to launch a play every time the signal happens. At this point, when you start your enablement, you might see a lot of objections, reps who are just simply not interested in running go-to-market plays at scale. I think the sentiment sometimes can be, who is this team? They're not sellers, and then now they're telling me how to attack my book of business. In the past, how we've approached that here is we've assembled a tiger team of really great reps who have done that in the past, have seen success, and used them as conduits to say, hey, look at all of these results that we've gotten. You too can get there and hit your number if you use this framework. You might have a perfect go-to-market playbook, but it doesn't matter if your sales team isn't executing it, which is why it's so important to involve them from the get-go and make sure that you have their buy-in and the buy-in from their leaders when you're building your go-to-market playbook. One of the best things about templatizing go-to-market playbook is that you can actually start to look at their performance on a play-by-play level. Which plays are resonating with your customers the most? You can start to A/B test, and maybe you use the same messaging with a slightly different format or a slightly different wording in the title, and then you start to benchmark which play is performing the best. You start to look at messaging, and you start to understand which plays are performing well, and the ones that are not, you start to iterate and change them for the next launch. You might find that a play that you expected to perform really well isn't performing. Is it because of the messaging? Are you targeting the right people? Was the field enabled appropriately to launch that specific play? And then you start to understand where is it breaking down across the funnel so that you can iterate and launch the next one. If a play has performed really well, you might think about expanding it. Maybe you did a trial with your team in North America, and now you want to start to pivot and run that same play in different markets. The bottom line is every modern organization should be centralizing their go-to-market playbooks and cloning the best work that's already happening within your org for the rest of your reps. I would love to hear from you. Have you launched a go-to-market playbook? What questions do you have for us for our next video?